Eala, under fire. A controversial net shot that stopped the match cold. Her opponent erupting in fury, the crowd turning hostile, and a chair umpire forced to make the call that would define everything. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not at the US Open. Not during the biggest match of her life. But when the replay rolled and the decision came down, it didn't end the controversy. It ignited it. What really happened at that net? And why did one moment turn a historic victory into a storm of debate? August 2025, Arthur Ashe Stadium. The lights, the crowd, the suffocating weight of history pressing down on 20-year-old Eala's shoulders. She wasn't just playing a tennis match. She was carrying the hopes of 110 million Filipinos who had never seen one of their own win a main draw singles match at a Grand Slam in the Open era. Never. Not once. Until today, Eala had earned her spot through the qualifying rounds, fighting through 3 grueling matches just to make the main draw. Her reward? A first-round clash against Clara Tauson. The talented Danish player ranked 33 spots higher at number 96. On paper, Tauson was the favorite. She had the experience, the ranking, the power game that could overwhelm opponents. But Eala had something else. Something intangible. She had belief. The Philippine community in New York had packed the stands. Red, white, blue, and yellow flags waved throughout the crowd. Every point Eala won was met with deafening roars. Every mistake was met with collective gasps. This wasn't just tennis. This was national pride manifesting itself in every forehand, every backhand, every desperate sprint to the ball. Eala felt it. She'd said as much in pre-match interviews, her voice trembling slightly as she acknowledged what this moment meant. Not just for her career, but for an entire nation that had invested so much emotion into her journey. The match started with nervous energy. Eala took the first set with aggressive baseline play, breaking Tauson twice to close it out 6-3. The crowd erupted. Social media back in the Philippines exploded. This was happening. History was being made, but tennis has a cruel way of reminding you that nothing is guaranteed until the final point is won. Tauson stormed back in the second set, finding her rhythm and overpowering Eala with heavy ground strokes. 6-2. 1 set all. Everything would be decided in the third. The third set became a war of attrition. Every game mattered. Every point felt like it could shift momentum permanently. Both players were exhausted. Both were fighting through cramps and fatigue. Both knew that one break of serve could be the difference between victory and devastation. They traded holds, neither willing to give an inch. The tension in the stadium was suffocating. Fans on both sides were on their feet for every rally, their screams blending into a cacophony of emotion that made the court feel like a battlefield. At 5 games all, with Eala serving came the moment that would define everything. The moment that would overshadow the heroics, divide opinion, and turn a historic achievement into a lightning rod for controversy. It started with a rally. A long, brutal exchange that had both players running baseline to baseline, each trying to find the angle that would end the point. Tauson drove a deep forehand. Eala read it perfectly, moved forward, and attacked the net. Tauson tried a passing shot. Eala extended her racket, made contact, and sent the ball back across the net for what should have been a clean winner. But Tauson didn't celebrate the great rally. She didn't acknowledge the shot. Instead, she immediately raised her hand, her face twisted in disbelief and anger. Her racket crossed the net, she insisted. It was a violation. The point should be hers. And just like that, everything changed. What happens when winning the right way isn't enough? What happens when the rules become the story instead of the game? The chair umpire, Kater Nooney, had seen the shot. He'd been watching closely, as he always did during crucial moments. But Tauson's protest was immediate and fierce. She pointed at the net, gestured wildly, her voice rising as she explained what she believed had happened. Eala's racket had crossed over the plane of the net during contact with the ball. If that was true, it was a violation. The point would go to Tauson. And in a match this tight, 1 point could change everything. Nooney listened. He considered. And then he made the call that would turn this match into a spectacle. He asked for a video review. The words echoed through the stadium, and suddenly, the energy shifted. This was no longer just about tennis. This was about justice, fairness, and the cold, unforgiving eye of technology deciding who deserved to win. The crowd murmured nervously. Eala stood at the baseline, trying to stay calm, trying not to let the delay disrupt her focus. Tauson paced near the net, convinced she was right, convinced the replay would vindicate her protest. The replay was shown on the giant screens above the court. Slow motion, frame by frame. The ball approaching, Eala's racket extending, the moment of contact. And then the conclusion, the ball was hit on Eala's side of the net. Her racket had not crossed the plane during contact. The shot was legal. The point was awarded to Eala. Nooney's voice was calm and authoritative as he announced the decision. But his words were drowned out by the roar of the Filipino fans who erupted in celebration. But Tauson didn't accept it. She couldn't. From her perspective, she'd seen what she'd seen. The replay might have shown one angle, but she believed there were others that would prove her right. And in that moment, all the frustration, all the exhaustion, all the disappointment of being on the wrong side of a crucial call came pouring out. She approached the chair umpire, her voice sharp and cutting. "Look at the ball," she demanded. "What is your opinion about this?" "How can you be sure?" Nowney remained composed, as chair umpires are trained to do. He explained calmly that the video review had been conclusive. The decision stood. But Tauson wasn't satisfied. She stood there arguing, refusing to let it go. The crowd, which had been on edge during the review, now turned hostile. Boos began to rain down. Not because they hated Tauson, but because they wanted the match to continue. They wanted to see Eala finish what she'd started. They wanted history to be made without interruption. Eala, meanwhile, stood quietly at the baseline. She didn't engage. She didn't gloat. She simply waited, her face a mask of concentration, trying to block out the chaos swirling around her. This was supposed to be her moment, her historic achievement, but now it felt tainted, overshadowed by controversy and anger. She could see Tauson's frustration. She could hear the boos. And she knew that no matter how this match ended, this moment would be replayed endlessly, analyzed, debated, and dissected by people who weren't even there. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, Tauson returned to the baseline. The match resumed, but the damage was done. The atmosphere had shifted. What had been a competitive, spirited battle between two talented players had become something uglier, something personal. And everyone watching knew that this controversy would not be forgotten, no matter who won the match. But here's the question no one was asking yet. Was Tauson's anger about the call? Or was it about something deeper, the fear of losing to an underdog on the biggest stage? Tauson's eruption didn't end with the argument. It continued in the way she played the next few points. Her shots became more aggressive, almost reckless. She was trying to overpower Eala, to prove that she was the better player, that the controversial call hadn't decided the match. But emotion is a dangerous thing in tennis. It can fuel you, or it can destroy you. And for Tauson, it became a distraction. Eala, on the other hand, found clarity in the chaos. She'd been vindicated by the video review. The point was hers, fair and square. And now, with Tauson visibly rattled, she had an opportunity. She held serve to go up 6-5. The crowd was deafening. One more game, one more hold from Tauson, and they'd be in a tiebreak. Or one break, and Eala would make history, but Tauson didn't fold. Despite her frustration, despite the boos, despite the weight of the moment, she held serve. 6-6, tiebreak. Everything would be decided in a race to 7 points, with a 2-point margin. This was it. The culmination of 3 hours of brutal tennis, of emotional highs and lows, of controversy and resilience. And both players knew that whoever won this tiebreak would carry the memory of this match for the rest of their lives. The tiebreak was a masterpiece of tension. Eala jumped out to an early lead, 3-1, then 4-2. She was 2 points away from history. But Tauson clawed back, 4-3, then 4-4. Then 5-4, Tauson serving. The momentum swung back and forth like a pendulum, each player refusing to give the other an inch. The crowd was on its feet, screaming with every point. The noise so loud it felt like the stadium itself might collapse under the weight of emotion. At 6-all, Eala had another match point. Her second of the tiebreak. She served. Towson returned. A rally began. Forehand to backhand, cross-court, down the line, both players giving everything they had left. And then Eala saw her opening. She attacked with a forehand down the line. Towson stretched, got her racket on it, but the ball sailed long. It was over. Eala had won. 6-3, 2-6, 7-6. The scoreboard confirmed it. History had been made. Eala collapsed to the court, her hands covering her face as tears streamed down her cheeks. The Filipino fans erupted in celebration, their chants echoing through Arthur Ashe Stadium. This was the moment they'd waited for. The moment an entire nation had dreamed of. Alex Eala had become the first Filipino to win a main draw singles match at a Grand Slam in the Open era. It was monumental. It was historic. It was everything she'd worked for. But even in victory, the controversy lingered. Towson approached the net for the handshake, her face a mixture of disappointment and grudging respect. The handshake was brief, professional, but there was no warmth in it. No acknowledgement of the drama that had unfolded. Just two competitors doing what was required before walking off the court in opposite directions. And as Eala waved to the crowd, soaking in the moment, she knew that this match would be remembered not just for her achievement, but for the controversy that nearly overshadowed it. Was this victory tainted by the controversy? Or did surviving the storm make it even more meaningful? Within minutes of the match ending, social media exploded. The controversial net shot was everywhere. Clips, slow-motion replays, frame-by-frame analysis. Tennis fans, analysts, and casual observers all weighed in with their opinions. And as always happens in the age of instant reaction, the world divided itself into camps. The Filipino tennis community celebrated Eala's vindication. They pointed to the video review as proof that she'd done nothing wrong. The technology had confirmed it. The chair umpire had confirmed it. The rules had been followed. Eala had won fair and square, and her historic achievement deserved to be celebrated without qualification. Hashtags like #OnProudFilipino and #Eala History trended worldwide. Her Instagram post after the match, a simple photo of her collapsed on the court with the caption, "Sometimes the truth isn't popular, but it's still the truth," was flooded with supportive comments, but not everyone agreed. Danish fans and some neutral observers questioned whether the video review had been conclusive. They pointed to alternative angles that seemed to suggest Eala's racket might have crossed the net plane. They argued that the technology wasn't perfect, that human error could still influence the decision. Some even suggested that the emotional weight of Eala's historic quest had influenced the chair umpire's judgment, consciously or unconsciously. Tennis analysts were more measured, but still divided. Some praised Eala for maintaining her composure during the controversy and finishing the match strong. Others sympathized with Towson, noting that it's incredibly difficult to argue with technology in the moment, especially when you believe you've witnessed a violation with your own eyes. One prominent commentator said, "In situations like this, there's no winning. If the call goes against Eala, people accuse the umpire of robbing her of history. If it goes in her favor, people accuse the system of favoring the underdog story." The debate raged for days. Sports talk shows dissected the incident endlessly. Former players weighed in. Some argued that Towson's reaction had been unprofessional, that she should have accepted the video review and moved on. Others defended her, saying that competitors have every right to challenge calls they believe are wrong, and that passion shouldn't be confused with poor sportsmanship. The controversy became a Rorschach test, revealing more about the biases of the observers than about the truth of what had actually happened. What got lost in all the noise was the broader context. Eala had played an incredible match. She'd come back from losing the second set. She'd survived 2 match points in the tiebreak. She'd made history for her country. But instead of being celebrated purely for her achievement, she was now at the center of a controversy that threatened to define the narrative. And that reality stung more than any loss could have. In the end, does it matter if the call was right? Or does it only matter that people believe it was? The world had its verdict. But what about the players? What did they really think when the cameras stopped rolling? When Eala faced the media after her historic victory, she was composed, gracious, and diplomatic. She praised Towson's level of play. She acknowledged the controversy but emphasized that the video review had confirmed her shot was legal. And most importantly, she shifted the focus back to what the victory meant for Filipino tennis. "This moment is bigger than me," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion clearly visible in her eyes. "This is for everyone back home who believed in me, who supported me, who dreamed of this day. I just wanted to make them proud." It was the perfect response. Measured, humble, focused on the bigger picture. But anyone watching closely could see the toll the controversy had taken. Eala's achievement, which should have been an unqualified triumph, now carried an asterisk in the minds of those who questioned the call. She knew it. And it hurt. Towson's post-match comments were more complicated. She acknowledged that she'd let her emotions get the better of her during the argument with the chair umpire. "In the heat of the moment, I believed I was right," she admitted. "But I respect the decision. The video review is there for a reason." It was a gracious statement, one that showed maturity and sportsmanship. But she also added, "I still believe what I saw. But sometimes in tennis, you don't get the calls you want. You have to move on." That final sentence lingered. It suggested that Towson still harbored doubts about the correctness of the decision, even if she wasn't willing to openly challenge it anymore. And for those looking for evidence that the controversy wasn't settled, that sentence was all they needed. Behind closed doors, both players dealt with the aftermath in their own ways. Eala returned to the Philippines briefly before continuing her season, where she was greeted as a national hero. Parades, interviews, celebrations. The controversy was barely mentioned. For her fans, it didn't matter. She'd won. She'd made history. That was enough. But Eala couldn't fully shake the memory of that moment at the net. The anger in Towson's eyes. The boos from the crowd. The feeling that her greatest achievement had been tainted by something beyond her control. Towson, meanwhile, moved forward quietly. She didn't dwell publicly on the match. She focused on the rest of her season, using the loss as motivation rather than an excuse. But those close to her knew that the incident had left a mark. Not because she believed she'd been robbed, but because she'd let her emotions derail her in a crucial moment. That was the real lesson for her. Not the call itself, but how she'd reacted to it. Months later, when asked about the incident in an interview, Eala offered a perspective that felt both wise and wistful. "I think everyone saw what they wanted to see in that moment," she said. "Some people saw a fair call. Some people saw controversy. Some people saw history being made. Some people saw history being questioned. And maybe all of those things are true at the same time. That's just how sports work sometimes. But here's the uncomfortable truth. History will remember Eala's first Grand Slam victory. Will it also remember the controversy? Or will time erase the doubt and leave only the achievement? Years from now, when people talk about Eala's career, this match will be mentioned. The first Filipino to win a main draw singles match at a Grand Slam in the Open era. It's a fact that can never be taken away, a milestone that will be repeated in highlight reels and history books for decades. But the controversy will be mentioned too, not because it defined the match, but because it revealed something fundamental about sports in the modern era. The truth is only as powerful as people's willingness to believe it. The video review confirmed that Eala's shot was legal. The chair umpire stood by the decision. The rules were followed. But doubt, once planted, is difficult to uproot. And for some fans, analysts, and observers, that doubt will always linger. Not because they have evidence that the call was wrong, but because they want to believe it was. Because it makes for a better story. Because controversy is more interesting than clarity. For Eala, this moment became a defining part of her origin story. Not in a negative way, but in a way that showed her resilience. She didn't just win a historic match. She won it while navigating controversy, pressure, and the weight of an entire nation's expectations. That's not something every player can do. And in that sense, the controversy actually enhanced her legacy rather than diminishing it. It proved she could handle more than just great tennis. She could handle the chaos that comes with being in the spotlight. For Towson, the match became a lesson in emotional control. She'd played well enough to win. She'd fought through the second and third sets with determination and skill. But in the crucial moment, she'd let anger cloud her judgment. Not anger at Eala, but anger at the situation, at the perceived injustice of the call. And that anger had cost her focus at the worst possible time. It's a lesson many competitors learn the hard way. Sometimes the opponent you need to beat isn't the person across the net. It's the voice in your own head telling you that you've been wronged. The broader tennis world moved on, as it always does. New matches, new controversies, new stories to tell. But for those who were there that day or who watched it unfold live, the memory of that moment at the net remains vivid. The protest, the video review, the boos, the fury, the vindication, the tears, all of it compressed into a few minutes that felt like an eternity. And perhaps that's the real legacy of this match. Not the controversy itself, but what it revealed about the nature of competition, fairness, and perception. Eala and Towson both played with everything they had. Both believed they deserved to win. Both were willing to fight for every point. But only one could walk away victorious. And the line between triumph and heartbreak was so thin, it could only be measured by the cold, unblinking eye of a video replay. In the end, tennis gave us an answer. But life rarely does. And that's what makes moments like this so compelling. They force us to confront uncomfortable questions about justice, fairness, and what it means to win. Was Eala's victory tainted by controversy? Or was it elevated by it? Did Towson have a right to be angry? Or was her protest a distraction from the fact that she'd lost to a better player on that day? The answers depend on who you ask. And maybe that's the point. Maybe sports isn't about definitive answers. It's about the debates, the emotions, the moments that make us feel something. And on that August day in 2025, Alex Eala made the world feel something. Pride, anger, joy, doubt, all of it swirling together in one unforgettable match. So here's the final question. Did the controversy make this victory more meaningful? Or did it rob Alex Eala of the pure celebration she deserved? Because the answer to that question might tell us more about ourselves than about the match itself. Alex Eala under fire. A controversial call that divided the tennis world. But through it all, history was made. The first Filipino to win a Grand Slam main draw match. A moment that will live forever, controversy and all. Because sometimes, the greatest victories aren't the ones that come easy. They're the ones that test you, challenge you, and force you to prove that you belong. And on that day, Alex Eala proved exactly that. If you want to see more deep dives into the controversies, emotions, and historic moments that define women's tennis, hit that subscribe button. Because these stories, the ones about resilience, controversy, and what it means to make history, these are the stories that matter. Drop a comment. Do you think the call was right? Or does doubt always linger when the stakes are this high? Let's talk about it.